The UK has historically been one of the world's largest emitters of CO2, with one study putting its emissions since 1850 at 3% of the global total, not including emissions released in its colonies, which, considering the British Empire was once the largest empire in human history, would be considerable. Our World in Data puts the UK's share of cumulative global CO2 emissions since 1750 in 2021 at 4.52%. While they don't tell the full story of Britain's impact on the environment, these numbers are still staggering, as the UK in 2023 had just 0.84% of the world's population. Even ignoring history, the UK still emits a larger share of global emissions than the percentage of its inhabitants. Going back to our World in Data, we see that the UK produced 0.93% of worldwide carbon dioxide in 2021, while its population was around 0.85% of the global total. And yet, this is also an undercount, because the UK is a net importer of CO2. This means that a large part of UK consumption is from goods manufactured in other countries, and those emissions from consumption are not reflected in the previously mentioned statistic of CO2 produced by the UK. In 2019, the British government committed to a net zero target. What this means is a 100% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 2050 compared with 1990 levels. The government stated that net zero means any emissions would be balanced by schemes to offset an equivalent amount of greenhouse gases from the atmosphere, such as planting trees or using technology like carbon capture and storage. This pledge was made by a Conservative government. However, actions by the Tories since then have raised some questions about whether the UK is really on the way to reaching its goal, which many already argued wasn't enough. Perhaps chief among these actions is Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's recent announcement of over 100 new licences for oil and gas extraction in the North Sea. This move has attracted much criticism, with Oxfam's climate policy advisor Lindsay Walsh stating, "Extracting more fossil fuels from the North Sea will send a wrecking ball through the UK's climate commitments at a time when we should be investing in a just transition to a low-carbon economy and our own abundant renewables." For me, moves like this are hardly surprising, one of the reasons being that the Conservative Party is deeply connected with fossil fuel and climate denial interests. For example, a recent news story revealed how Teresa Villiers, former Secretary of State for Environmental, Food and Rural Affairs from July 2019 until February 2020, failed until August 2023 to declare that she had £70,000 shares in Shell, one of the biggest oil companies in the world, and she's not the only one with links to Shell. In July 2023, Rishi Sunak set up a business council to discuss ways to boost investment, innovation, and access to skills and talent, as well as to support the delivery of the Prime Minister's priority to grow the economy and make the UK the best place to do business. On this council, he appointed 14 business leaders, one of which was Wael Sawan, the CEO of Shell, and his ties to the company don't end there. Sunak's wife, Akshata Murthy, has a just under 1% stake worth hundreds of millions of pounds in the company Infosys, which was co-founded by her father. Infosys is a global consulting and IT services company which has, in its own words, a long-standing relationship with Shell that has existed since the 2000s. And if its thirst for oil wasn't quenched there, that's okay, because in 2023 they also made a deal worth $1.5 billion with British Petroleum, or BP, a company that recorded record profits in the first 3 months of that year. This profit led many to call for the Conservatives to impose a harsher windfall tax on oil and gas companies. But considering that government ministers met fossil fuel companies a total of 54 times between January and March of 2023, these same months BP was making huge profits, I wouldn't hold my breath. Before looking at more of Sunak's current cabinet, let's go back to the ancient year of 2019 when a young, blonde hopeful by the name of Boris Johnson was running for the leadership of the Conservative Party. Both he and his runner-up Jeremy Hunt received donations from the Bristol Port Company, one of the co-owners of which is Terence Mordaunt, who once said, "No one has proved yet that carbon dioxide is the culprit of climate change. It may not be." He is also the chairman of the Global Warming Policy Foundation, a climate denial think tank that challenges policies relating to global warming. What about the ministers who served during Johnson's tenure in the leadership? Let's first look at one of the funniest characters in recent British politics, former short-time Prime Minister Liz Truss. Before Poundland Thatcher had her stab at being the head of government, she was the International Trade Secretary. Once an employee at Shell, she is also a long-time backer of Heathrow expansion, a supporter of fracking, and has made various derogatory remarks about efforts to tackle the climate crisis and some of the people undertaking those efforts. During her bid for Prime Minister, she received donations totalling £30,000 from two members of the Advisory Council for the Free Market Forum, which is an offshoot of the Institute of Economic Affairs, a think tank with a history of climate denial that has received funding from both BP and ExxonMobil. It also had various links to Boris Johnson's first cabinet. Johnson's Chancellor of the Exchequer, Sajid Javid, made a speech at IEA's 60th anniversary celebration about what they mean to him. Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab made a similarly gushing speech at the same event. Matt Hancock, who was Health Secretary, received donations amounting to $22,000 from IEA Chairman and donor of the Global Warming Policy Foundation, Neil Record. Johnson's Home Secretary, Priti Patel, received a £3,000 donation from Michael Hinsey, another donor to the GWPF. She also had a £2,000 donation from John Moynihan, who once sat on the board of trustees at the IEA. Going forward now to the, as of this video, current Sunak cabinet, we see more of the same. Both the leader of the House of Commons and the current Home Secretary, Penny Mordaunt and Suella Braverman, received £10,000 each from First Corporate Consultants, another company owned by the formerly mentioned chairman of GWPF, Terence Mordaunt. Then there's International Trade Secretary Kimi Badenoch, who has repeatedly shown opposition to the government's net zero target. She also received a donation of £1,000 from Michael Hinsey for a ticket to a Conservative Party fundraiser. In June of 2023, Rishi Sunak himself appeared at a reception for an ExxonMobil-funded think tank named Policy Exchange to credit them with inspiring the Conservatives' draconian crackdown on climate activists and other protesters.
The work PX has done on how to deal with Just Stop Oil and their protest tactics has helped us craft new legislation that allows people to go about their daily lives and watch their cricket without being disrupted by slow-walking eco-extremists.
While we've looked at some of the funding the Conservatives have received from anti-climate groups, this has been severely limited. I've tended to restrict it to cabinet members from the last 4 years of Tory governance. We could talk about plenty of other people, such as MP Steve Baker, who was once a trustee of the Global Warming Policy Foundation and also received a £10,000 donation from Neil Record. Baker has been a fierce opponent of measures to tackle the climate crisis. Then we have BP perhaps trying to be a bit more discreet by giving 3 different Tory MPs tickets totalling £4,200 to Wimbledon. 2 of these MPs, Gagan Mahindra and Paul Scully, voted against an amendment to impose a windfall tax on the profits of oil and gas companies. Hundreds of other Tories also did the same. It would only take a look at the excellent Desmog website to see plenty of other examples, and even then, who knows what kind of secret donations are going on. The simple fact is that the Conservatives are extremely intertwined with anti-climate action interests. They may not be as brazen as American Conservatives in their denial of the science, but they are almost as committed to blocking any action that may mitigate the worst crisis humanity currently faces. It's times like this where I remember the Marx quote, "The executive of the modern state is but a committee for managing the common affairs of the whole bourgeoisie."